There's different levels of impressive. People were impressed when George Masvidal hit a flying knee on Ben Askren, and footage came out of him the week before practicing that same flying knee. Surely the next level of impressive is to hit a technique in a fight and get the knockout that you haven't even been practicing. Think Jiri Prochazka versus Dominic Reyes. He admitted he only threw that spinning elbow about 2 or 3 times in his full fight camp, but it came out in what he called the battle trance, and he got the knockout with it. The third level, which is the most impressive, is to post what you're doing, pretty much hours of content of what you're doing, exactly your game plan before the fight happens, and then implement that game plan perfectly and knock out the greatest fighter ever in your sport. That's what Superbon Banshamek did. So let's break down the training of Superbon Banshamek with his number one padman, Trainer Guy. So we're going to see a lot of right side work. Right kick, right hand, because he was preparing for his southpaw. It's not the most complex stuff on the surface of it. Right hand, right kick, right hand, right kick. It looks very dominant, side heavy, but there's a few little details that we want to pay attention to. First of all, let's look at where Trainer Guy is padding for these kicks. It's not right on the body, it's not a high kick, it's in the middle. It's at this arm kick level, which is what he used a lot in that fight with Giorgio Petrosian. See how he's kicking into that arm level. What's really good about that is, one, if you kick as hard as Superbon, you're going to break down that arm. You're going to make it harder in a 5-round fight for that southpaw to use one of their main weapons, their left hand, their left straight, their left uppercut. As they repeatedly take that shin across their forearm, it's going to break down their arm. And we can see he's kicking at that forearm level. It's also really hard to catch. It can be really hard to counter because it pins your arms into your chest, and you can't come inside it the same way that a kick to a lower level, like a body kick just above the hip. Sometimes you can throw that left hand and your left hand's going to beat them to it. What else are we seeing here? We're seeing this one pad for the high kick. I love this padding method, and it took me quite a bit of time to learn. So where he one pads the high kick there, let's go back. So he hits a low kick, body kick, high kick, kicking at all 3 levels. That one padding for the high kick, there's a few things you need. One, you need a good set of tie pads. I use these Rev Gear tie pads that are really good, because if you use these tiny little flimsy tie pads, stuff that you might get in a Sports Direct, it's not going to pad, especially for a good kicker. Another thing is you need the right timing of when to contract in that shoulder stability, because I've got the timing wrong plenty of times when I was learning how to pad like that, and the knuckle just goes right back into the eye, and you get a black eye off it, and you're getting brain damage for holding pads. How fun is that? But there's a lot of benefits to that style of padding, that one pad high kick style, because you kind of have a little bit of shoulder in the way, which is what's going to be happening in the fight. They're going to have a little bit of shoulder in the way of that high kick. So it teaches people to throw that high kick tight, and it comes over the shoulder and it hits the head, especially when you're practicing that right high kick for an orthodox. Orthodox still carries over because he's very anti-southpaw pad work here, but it still carries over. It takes a bit of time to develop that one padding for the high kick, but it's really, really, really worth developing. Even though it's tricky, even though it's a little bit riskier. It gets people high kicking tighter as well. When you double pad a high kick, like a full on high kick, I find it cuts off the range on the high kick. People end up high kicking and they're not hitting boom into the face here. It stops out there, which isn't really realistic to the high kick you want. You want that hip turnover. So let's get back to what he's doing here. Using frames and moving out to the left side to angle his right kick across. Very, very basic stuff, just repeatedly done over and over and over again. There's a little bit of a skip. This has a few things. It gets a little bit of a stretch shortening cycle to prime his kick, so he kicks harder, loads his toes up. Oh, that's beautiful there. Like an inside kick, kind of on the shin level, because it takes him across almost like a sweep and sets up to a high kick level. Brilliant. But that little skip he does, you think it might be telegraphing it, but really good ties use that to cover distance and get themselves into range to kick. They use that as a feint, because they start messing up the timing with it. They don't always go exactly on the same step. They'll start to skip, then bang. And another big important detail is if you're trying to fight southpaw, it gets him off that center line. Here, Trainer Gay's being a really good padman. What we want padman to do is to fire back. We want some, obviously not giving your ucky, your student some CTE, but you want your padman to be firing back, or else you may as well just hit the bag. So you want your defense getting tested, your checks, your hand defense, whatever. But yeah, he hits that skip. He's generally moving to his left to line up that right kick. Simple punching combinations, multiple right hands within the same combination, because you're fighting the southpaw. If you're fighting the southpaw, generally I'm like, finish on the lead hand, finish on the lead hand. But the lead shoulder doesn't cover your chin as well when you're fighting a southpaw. The same way it does that the lead shoulder covers the chin really well when it's orthodox. So what happens is people will throw multiple strikes off the same side, right kick, right straight, because it kind of brings the rear shoulder into protecting your chin from their power side. Multiple kicks here, kick and back to a stance, kick and back to a stance. We saw a lot of, as well, double kicks. One of the best ways to practice rotation. He uses that left hand on the right shoulder trainer gauge to measure distance and make sure he has distance for the kick, because there's no point throwing it too close. Simple hand combinations again. There's a lot of landing the right kick and landing back in his stance and throwing the right straight. That's a brilliant stance check, and I don't care what level you are, whether you're a beginner or you're the best in the world like Superbon. Practicing that rear kick, land, and then the straight shot off the same side is one of the most invaluable training tools you can use. Kick, land, and throw the cross off the same side. It practices you getting back into your stance, landing on the ball of your feet, and being able to fire. Not to mention it's a really effective technique, because generally that right kick wears on their left arm, especially against a southpaw. That right kick wears on the left arm, brings their left arm out, deadens their left arm, so that right straight can fit through the middle. You've pinned their arm with the kick, and then you fire the right straight. Here's a little bit more of an extended combination here. It's quite interesting what's going on. So Trainer Gay throws a left hand, and Superbon frames off with his left hand. There's a little bit of feinting going back and forth as a frame. Here he touches the back leg into right kick. Back leg kick really effective against opposite stance. Whether that's, because you can go that double attack both ways. You can go leg kick first, then body kick. Sometimes more effective, you can go body kick down to the leg. Really, the back leg kick as well really sets up the high kick. I'm not exactly sure why. Maybe it's a distance thing, but I find kicking to the back leg sets up the high kick way more than throwing that kick to the inside leg. Here he's using the knees, choosing the range appropriate weapon. We always talk about this, changing the weapon appropriate to the range. Good fighter-padman relationships, they'll know when they're too close, and they'll just change it up for a knee, especially when they've got a body pad on. A little bit of playing around, because they'll be training 3, 4, 5, 6 hours a day. They're having a bit of fun as well. Train a guy coming in with a side kick, right straight to right kick to right straight. It happens absolutely loads, and there's no upper limit to how much you can practice at, really, especially if you know you're going to be fighting southpaws. They both chin each other a little bit. It's a brilliant bit of I don't know, probably no padding on Trainer Gay's punch there, and a bit of a grin at each other. So, simple stuff. A lot of finishing on the right hand, which I generally say don't finish on the right hand, but it can be a little bit different against the southpaw fighter. And it's something Superbon does amazingly well if you watch his fights, and he does it in pads there. He did a little bit there. He'll throw a right straight, and that right straight, he won't pull it back straight away. He'll leave it extended. You can put it on the shoulder, he can push him back, and that leaves him able to do a few things. He can push him back into a body kick, or if he pushes him back, all the weight goes on the back leg, and there's no way they're going to be able to lift or move that back leg, and he can slam a back leg kick in. So, either multiple reps, the doubles. Doubles really check your balance, and as well, they train your core, they train the rotational muscles really well. There he goes, jab, crossbody, hook. Hook doesn't have to land. A lot of the time against a southpaw fighter, that hook can just lead them into the knee or lead them into the cross. Really good knees. And there, Trainer Gay always uses his left hand to check the defense and check the balance of Superbon. Because when you throw a right knee, the most dangerous weapon that they're going to throw is a left hand. If you throw a left knee, the most dangerous weapon they're going to throw is a right hand, generally. Because people have this tendency, they'll throw a knee, and it's like sprinting. The knee comes up, and the arm comes down. That leaves you open. So it's just checking the defense of Superbon and making sure that he's actually framing across, framing on the top of the head, on the shoulder, which keeps balance, and it keeps that rear shoulder defending himself from the return hook. Again, a lot of simple stuff mixing with some very high level stuff. Doubling up on the lead hand, tapping the shoulder and then pivoting off. Lots of pivoting off into kicking. See how he gets his balance to kick and then throws it off the pivot. He doesn't kick whilst pivoting or rush. Great Thai fighters, they're never rushed because they're always getting the good balance before throwing the technique. And it's actually one of these things where it's faster to go slower. It's faster to get your good position and throw a good kick that has to be respected and buys time. Right kick to right straight, same combinations, very repetitious. You can look high and go low to that back leg. A lot of the time we see that kind of Thai sidekick. The Thai sidekick's a brilliant development. Way back in the day, many fighters used it. The most famous example is Samart Payakarun versus Panam Tunlek Hapalang. Butchered some pronunciations there. That's a really famous example. But it has a different interplay against a southpaw. So see there, he could touch the lead hand. As he touches the lead hand, we'll see it here, it brings that lead hand up, that jab hand, and then he can fit it through. And it can actually catch the liver a little bit because of the different orientation. That left kick can kind of come across the liver a little bit. There was a scissor knee before it cut out. A lot of repetitious stuff. A lot of work is focused on that back leg. Possibly why he's got a big ankle support on that back leg is because that plantar fascia, those Achilles, that calf will be taking so much stress throughout the full course of the day. Not even from the impact, but from landing the kick and bringing it back and being ready to spring back into a right straight. Thousands and thousands of repetitions it takes its toll. And this is a very interesting bit of pad work here. Again, we were talking about practicing arm kicks. He's really taken it to the next level here. I don't see this much. People wrapping that big boxing glove around and then wrapping the Thai pad around the boxing glove. That's as accurate a practice as you're gonna get in terms of practicing arm kicks. And that's something we saw in the fight. We saw him blast Giorgio Petrosian's arm over and over again until the arm wasn't as effective as a weapon, and it just dropped the level of the arm lower for that final head kick. See, sometimes he head kicks. See, sometimes he takes a little tiny jump off the floor to head kick. There, he kicks under it. Sometimes he takes that little tiny jump off the floor on his head kicks because he can get a little bit of extra range. He's not doing it every head kick, just every so often. But we saw in the fight, a big thing I think that helped him land the head kick is he actually jumped into the air and it got him a few extra inches, maybe an extra foot of range, that if he had his foot on the ground, his left leg on the floor, Giorgio Petrosian would have been able to lean back like he's done a million times throughout his illustrious career. A good thing about this as well, this interesting pad setup, is that Trainer Gay can fire back and not have to worry about bare knuckling his fighter. See, he can take the kick and then fire back, because that's what classic kickboxers do. They'll take the kick on the arm and fire back on the same side. Really good training there. Kick and return. Beautiful sweeps by Superbon. I hope Trainer Gay gets paid extra for all the times he gets swept, but then again, he does sweep a lot of his training partners, a lot of his trainer students a lot of the time. Yeah, and that arm kick level. Trainer Gay's forearms must be made of lead. I would absolutely love to see a scientist, some doctor, get some bone density scan on his forearms. It must be insane. He must have some of the densest forearms in the world to be padding kicks off of. Padding kicks a lot of the time off of the best Thai fighters in the world. Repeated kicks, you can't go wrong with repeated kicks. Brilliant finisher, brilliant to do between rounds. And this is actually an interesting concept. I really like this kind of practice. See how he's doing repeated kicks? One of the most exhaustive things you can do in the training room is repeatedly kick the pads. 5, 10, doubles. It's as tiring as any exercise you can do. And then he's just getting him to move. Use those foot feints. See, he's using his jab, his knee feint. Drilling in the same basic footwork that he uses in the fight. Lead hand fighting, knee feinting, pivot off. Always moving to that left. Super basic. And then back into the kicks. That's one of the best training tools you can do. If you don't know what to finish the next workout with, yeah, I did it this morning. Take something exhaustive, like kicks, 10 kicks, 50 kicks, however many kicks, and then just practice movement. It also allows Trainer Gay to sit back and see things that he wouldn't normally see when you're holding pads. When you're holding pads, you don't see everything because he's just right in front of you. And a certain amount of your attention when you're holding pads is just focused on not getting head kicked holding the pads in the proper position so that you're not going to knacker your arms. There's a lot of focus when you're holding pads. People want pads, but a lot of the focus when you're holding pads is not getting hurt or not holding your pads in a way where you're going to take repetitive strain injury. So when he lets him step off and he watches his movement, he's going to see different things that he wouldn't normally see in his footwork. Oh, he's looking away there. But brilliant drill. You can do this. You can get exhausted. If you're doing MMA, you can do sprawl, shoot, sprawl, shoot, sprawl, shoot. You can do it on the bag. You can do it shadow boxing. Get exhausted and then just practice whatever little footwork sequences that are relative to the fight. There's the face teep, another advantage of the one pad. It's really hard to stop that one going into your jaw there. But again, something Superbon uses very well. Something else as well is he has the same weapons, but they'll just be a slightly different height on it. So sometimes he hits that Thai side kick into the gut. Sometimes he hits it shoulder level. Sometimes he hits it all the way to the face. Sometimes he hits that right body kick into the arm level. Sometimes he hits it head level. Sometimes he tucks it under the elbow. That's what really high level strikers can do. It looks like the same move, but it's just differences of inches. Whether it's hitting the arm, coming under the elbow, hitting the head. Even people have different types of head kicks. Sometimes people have head kicks that hit the jaw. Sometimes people have head kicks that come over and hit right at the top of the head. Classic Mirko Krokop style. More repeated kicks. Again, repeated kicks, repeated techniques, anything you're doing. Low kicks, body hooks, hooks to the head. It's one of the best ways to train the core and train that rotation. Again, he's getting in to practicing his defense. A lot of defense focus when he gets tired. When he uses those body kicks to get his lungs going, there's a bit of a defense focus there. So Superbon, I think this is one of the most impressive feats in all of combat sports history, because he put 15-minute videos up like this consistently of the exact same tools he used in the fight against Giorgio Petrosian. And then when he fought Giorgio Petrosian, he had a perfect first round, didn't get caught, blasted his arm with kicks, pivoted off to the left, would throw the right straight, and if it missed, he would just frame on the shoulder, push him away and kick him, and use his push kick at different levels, exactly as he showed here. And then in the second round, he threw the same levels, kick to the arm, kick just under, push kick at different levels, and then just extended it slightly on that head kick and was ready for the counters of Giorgio Petrosian. He fought the greatest all-time kickboxer, showed everyone exactly what he was going to do, and then he did it in possibly the most impressive performance in kickboxing history. If you like the videos, if you like the analysis, the commentaries, the channel, what have you. These videos aren't monetized. I don't own the footage, but there's extra shizzle on Patreon. Sparring clips, bagwork clips, extended commentaries. If you've got any requests on there, I can do those. Go check out the Patreon. I'll put a linky link in the rinky dink.